I put up a poll on my community tab asking you all what I should review, and this was what came up in second place after the Butcher Babies. So let's talk about Blackbraid II. This is the follow-up to Blackbraid I, which came out last year. I didn't really know about it last year, even though my channel was very active a year ago. As most of you know, I'm not very big into black metal, but I think this album has a lot of a buzz around it, also because it's a one-man black metal band called Blackbraid. It's a unique subgenre called Native American black metal because the man behind it is, he's named something I'm not going to pronounce correctly, but it's Sgah'gahsowáh, which is a Mohawk name meaning the witch hawk. He's Native American and he mixes black metal with his Native American roots. A lot of the lyrics deal with connecting with nature. So if you saw the text in the thumbnail, you saw it read, is black metal going mainstream? Because this musician was featured in an article in the New York Times, and it wasn't the type of article you would expect where it's warning everybody about the dangers of black metal or how it might be destroying society or anything like that. It's a very respectful article about a Native American man who uses this type of music to talk about his culture. So that's what I find very intriguing about this artist and this album in general. So being that I'm not a big fan of black metal, I don't have a lot of knowledge of a lot of other black metal bands. I watched a few of the other reviews just to get an idea of what other people are saying about it. So for example, I watched Hammerheart Metal Reviews because he's one of the channels I watch often, and he gave it a favorable review. He compared it to melodic black metal as opposed to many people calling it an atmospheric black metal album. So I definitely take his word for it because I know he's a very good source for this type of music. So for the rest of this video, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts and opinions on the album. This album is about an hour long. Some songs are short instrumentals, others are long epics. I'll be talking about my opinions. So let's get into this further. The opening track is called Autumnal Hearts Ablaze. And this is just a 2-minute acoustic instrumental. It's here to kind of get you into the spirit of the album. It's a short, beautiful track with different layers. It's the type of song that brings out the Native American spirit by using an acoustic instrument. The Spirit Returns is track 2, and that's when the album really starts to take off with traditional black metal blast beats. The vocals are very harsh and low in the mix, but the type of this genre is basically like this. There are lots of different kinds of guitar riffs, and they change throughout the song. I thought that this was a good song to ease you into the album because it's one of the shorter songs of the traditional sounding black metal songs at a little over 4 minutes. There's a part in the song where they have some like isolated guitar riffs as well as some melodic riffs that use tremolo picking, which is something common in this genre. Let me also mention that this was the single released about a month ago. The Wolf That Guides the Hunter's Hand is the third track, and this is part of the album where they start to ease you into the longer songs, as this is 7.5 minutes long. This is also where you start to hear more of the Native American culture used. For example, you hear the wolf howl in the beginning of the song. Other than that, it's a typical black metal song with blast beats, heavy vocals, and the typical black metal guitar riffs. This one is fast-paced with a lot of tremolo-picked guitar riffs. The vocals are not easy to understand if you listen to the music, but if you read the lyrics, they're about the relationship between like the wolf and the man. I thought the guitar riffs were very interesting as they were very complex. The song is also melodic as these riffs will stick in your head after a few listens. This artist also knows how to use the time wisely when arranging the songs, making sure that he does not have like the same riff repeat over and over. He makes sure that the tempos change and that he uses isolated guitar sections. Spells of Moon and Earth is track number 4. So 4 tracks into the album, and this is another acoustic instrumental. It has some wild animals that can be heard in the background. We can also hear some Native American wind instruments playing a soft melody. So the song evokes the image of sitting around a fire and just enjoying music that's played with handmade instruments, as opposed to someone like bringing a radio or something like that in the woods. It's a song that brings you back to nature. So we're 5 tracks in at this point, and you should be very in touch with nature, because we had the longest song at 13 and a half minutes called Moss-Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon. This starts out in the typical black metal fashion, but interestingly, it moves at a slower pace than the other songs. There's a lot of melody in the riffs. On this song, the vocals are a little easier to understand. The first section of the song is about walking through a forest, and then there's the line, she takes me in her shroud, which I will assume he is talking about like Mother Nature and not a real woman. In the song, he tells a story about visiting an old shrine that's covered in moss. It is placed with an altar, hence the name of the song, Moss-Covered Bones on the Altar of the Moon. At about 5 minutes into the song, the pace starts to pick up, and the whole atmosphere gets more intense. We can hear some of those wind instruments that we heard in the previous track. This is the type of song that slowly builds as it progresses. Further on in the song, we get more blast beats and more of those wind instruments. He slows it down in the last 2 minutes of the song as a way to bring you back from that astral plane or wherever you were taken during this 13-minute trip. We are on track 6, and at this point, you're very invested in the album, and most of you are ready for another long song. So this one is A Song of Death on Winds of Dawn. It is 11 minutes long, and it's a traditional black metal song with blast beats and tremolo picked guitar riffs. The vocals are very harsh. It's not very easy to understand the lyrics on this one, as the vocals are very low and there are a lot of blast beats. I read the lyrics. They seem to be about death, but death comes in the form of a woman who is calling upon him. This is just my interpretation, by the way. But as I was saying before about how he used the time wisely, the song gets very melodic about 3 minutes into it. We hear some wind blowing in the wind instrument melodies about halfway through the song. This is very well placed because it breaks up the song. I've read a few reviews where they say the songs may drag on at times, but I think this artist made an effort to keep things interesting during the longer run times. This song goes through another tempo change towards the end with some traditional black metal riffing and fast drum beats. We are starting to move towards the end of the album, and this is the last of the short instrumental pieces called Celestial Passage. This one is different because it features both acoustic and electric guitars. The wind instruments are still here, and this is just a short melodic song that gives you a break from the other long and complex song. So there are 3 more songs on the album, and at this point we get Twilight Hymn of the Ancient Blood, and it starts a little differently. Some heavy distorted guitar riffs sound more like doom metal or groove metal. The vocals are more in the death doom style with the lower growls. The guitar riff has sort of a groove metal kind of feel, followed by some slow and chunky guitar riffs that are almost reminiscent of Black Sabbath. They continue with some tremolo picked guitar riffs, but at this point in the song, the pace is still fairly slow. This sounds like some old school thrash, but with a black metal style vocals. The song eventually starts to sound like blackened thrash as they're bringing those Black Sabbath style vocals and guitar licks later on in the end of the song. So there are about 2 more songs on the album, about 7 and 8 minutes long. This is the last original song called Sadness and the Passage of Time and Memory. The next one is going to be a cover. I'll get to that in a minute. but you can consider this the final song. This one starts with an acoustic guitar sound that was used during the instrumentals earlier on the album, but when they start to incorporate some distorted guitar riffs and harsh vocals, what's interesting is that they start to strum the acoustic guitar to create the rhythm while using sustained guitar chords to create atmosphere. They play a melodic black metal style guitar riff followed by some tremolo picking. This is more of a slow-moving song with some melodic guitar riffs and traditional black metal sounds. The song has some quieter parts with some isolated guitars and sustained distorted chords. They do this as a way to balance the heavy and the light. The song slowly fades into silence before the next track. The final song is track number 10, A Fine Day to Die. It's a cover song by Bathory. I've never listened to the original, but the other reviews have been saying that the original was better, but I went into it with an open mind. It definitely had more of a dark and evil sound. It starts with some acoustic guitars playing arpeggiated chords with a very demonic sounding voice. The song then gets very heavy with some guitar riffs that sound almost thrashy. It still has a black metal sound to them. Keep in mind that the original came out in 1988, so black metal was still in its infancy. There are a lot of tremolo picked guitar riffs here and more traditional heavy metal guitar riffs. The song has some heavy and light parts with the acoustic guitars used towards the end of the song as well as some more atmospheric sounds. The song also has a very fast-paced shredder guitar solo, which I believe was the only song to have this. It was not too bad. It sounded like it belonged on the album, and if nobody told me it was a cover, I would have thought it was an original. So that is all. This video is long enough, so I don't need to elaborate much more. I thought it was pretty good, and that's coming from somebody who's not familiar with a lot of black metal bands. I will give this an 8.5 out of 10. It's probably the best album of the week and a contender for album of the month, even though we're still in the first weekend of July. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please remember to like this video. It helps me with the algorithm. Here's my review of the new Enslaved album called Heimdall. It came out a couple months, but I thought that was something that was maybe related to this. And that's all. I will see you in the next one.